Hello, I'm Charles Gross.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake.
Welcome to the Critics Circle. Now, tonight we're going to talk about a show that, Leslie, you've been tracking for many years.
Well, I have, Charlie. It goes back to the days when I was a cabaret critic, and I met this young cabaret performer / writer / director whose name was Chip DeFa. And he had written a little show called Cohan about the life of George M. Cohan. At that time, I think it was just called Cohan. It was nice. It starred John Peterson. It sang, but it didn't dance. And I literally said to him at one point, how can you do a show about George M. Cohan where he doesn't dance? And he said to me, I have many versions of this show. And I went, okay, but this is the one I happen to see. Jump forward to the year 2021, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 15, 18 years. And he has gotten the show as far as the Irish Rep. It's a full-fledged musical. It is not a little cabaret show. It's called Cohan Tonight, or George M. Cohan Tonight.
George M. Cohan.
It still stars John Peterson. And it dances, man. It dances. I was very happy with it. It does tell the story. It's a biopic. It goes from the early days to the end. But George M. Cohan spanned 40 years of show business, was a legendary performer, writer, director.
He essentially invented the American musical comedy. And you have John Peterson.
Right. He perfected it, even if he didn't invent it. Yeah.
Right, portraying him, and he has to go up against the legendary movie with James Cagney.
We also saw Joel Grey played Cohan in George M. And you and I also saw. I did see it at the Palace of all places. And we also saw Robert Creighton a couple of years ago, whom we interviewed, who was playing Cagney, but as such also got to play Cohan. So,
Right,
sorry,
for a brief part of the play. I really like John Peterson as Cohan. I liked his singing, his dancing, his presentation. I like the play. I like the early part of the play where he's talking about Cohan's childhood. When he gets to Cohan's adulthood, he really skims everything over. He says, he tells us, yes, I wrote this, I wrote that. I became the, top man on Broadway. I was a producer. I had a theater, etc. And it's all very interesting, but I kind of missed the details and the attention that was paid to Cohan's childhood and left out of his adult life.
Yeah, I think that may be because he only had 90 minutes. He didn't do the whole show. It was an abridged version. There may have been more in the original. This again was produced at the Irish Repertory Theater,
right?
And it doesn't give it gives a credit for direction to as directed by Chip DeFa, but the film is not. The film is directed by John Peterson.
Well, John Peterson adapted it. So John really is channeling Cohan in more than one ways with this production. I like the fact that he kept the camera nice and wide so we could see his dance steps. I didn't quite understand why the picture was sometimes black and white and sometimes color. There didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for that.
May I just say that I thought that was a directorial decision to perhaps make it look a little more interesting on camera because you're not in the theater to see, the whole thing. And I thought his camera angles were good. I think it moved it along. For me, it did anyway.
Yes, it did. And, we almost never get to see Cohan's musicals anymore. Little Johnny Jones was revived, I think, 40 years ago with Donny Osmond. And I think it may have lasted one night. So
I never got to see it.
It's neither did I. And,
the Irish Rep did do The Tavern, which was not a musical. The Tavern is AKA The Drunkard, and it was all about the wages of alcoholism. But
his Cohan's songs include "Give My Regards to Broadway," "You're a Grand Old Flag" over there. So we may not have seen the musicals, but we certainly are familiar with the songs.
Well, we get to see him do Harrigan from the musical that he wrote about Harrigan and Hart. Famous old vaudevillians. And my grandparents were vaudevillians. I would love to be able to put a slug of them in here. And my grandfather must have danced to some of Cohan's music because that's what everybody was tapping to in those days. And my grandfather was a tap dancer in vaudeville. So,
and that brings me to my final thought about the play is that, especially towards the end, a lot of the songs, again, it limited orchestrations. You only got the same actor performing them, so they do tend to blend in a little at the end. To me, it lost the distinction because it's basically same types of songs, same dance steps, same orchestrations, and that
I don't think there were many differentiations, to be honest with you, but I had one. My problem was that it didn't go into the sadness of the end of his life, and the end of his life was not a happy one. The movie Yankee Doodle Dandy takes in something about Cohan's last days, but he had something that not a lot of people know is that in 1917, somewhere around there, 1919, he had a fight with equity. He was a manager and a producer, and so he was on both sides of the fence. And the actors wanted to be treated better and get paid and wanted to get better pay. And he said,
they wanted union recognized.
They wanted union recognition, and they did not. He did not want to give it. So he stood against the union, and it shut down the theaters. We talk about theaters were never shut down before. They were shut down then. They were shut down during a snowstorm once also, but they were shut down for, I think, 10 days due to this standoff. And then the actors for many years were very angry with Cohan, and he had to go to the union to ask permission to be in his own musicals because he was an actor on that side. And then I think that was interesting, that maybe in the play, I would have liked to see that instead of all the happy, because it wasn't all happy. And maybe that's why you find it bland toward the end.
Could be. And he ended his career in a show by Rodgers and Hart called I'd Rather Be Right, portraying a singing and dancing Franklin Roosevelt.
Dancing on a desk, man. Franklin Roosevelt up out of his wheelchair and tap dancing. Those were the days. 1941, he died in 1942, so he was the last thing he did.
Right, and he did live to see the Cagney movie, and he enjoyed it. He said, wow, how can you follow that? This statue, the only statue of an actor in Times Square, is in Duffy Square, right near the TKTS booth.
I think I like this better than you did. I would, if we were giving numbers the way we used to, I would give it a 4.5. I would give it really high mark.
I'd be close to a 3.5, but I did enjoy the evening. Mm-hmm. And again, this was available online at the IRT. Admission is free, but donations are welcome.
And kudos again to Kieran O'Reilly and Charlotte Moore for finding these things and making the rest of us see them.
They were show people, and they first carried me out onto the stage within days of my birth in Providence, Rhode Island on the 4th of July, 1878. You won't do any business if you haven't got a band. The folks expect a street flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace me away. I booked a publicist, I hired a rehearsal hall, I engaged a cast, I set an opening night, and then I started to write the show.